that circle of that. All right, no matter how much we try to prepare, we're not prepared. All right, we are live, I believe, as live as we're gonna be.
Hey, Scott's here.
Scott's here already. Welcome if you're new to our live streams. It's an automotive live stream. We're gonna talk about anything automotive, specifically or not specifically, anything. Engine-wise, anything engine-wise, strong, but throw anything at us. I will be answering some questions that I've had during the week. And I'll wait to see if that person or some persons come into the room. Felicia's here. Hello. And welcome. And then the ones that have been here, welcome back. So now I can say welcome back. I don't think Terry's going to be here. Bob's here. We can get started. Scott is here. All right, I think I can start off by opening up a beer. I don't think Terry is going to be here today, right?
No, Terry and RC will be traveling. He does look forward to having a beer in person.
All right. Hello, Superman. Kevin, Felicia, everybody, hello. It's been a long week. I need to look at y'all and not looking at my beer. All right, but it's been that kind of a week.
But he was really looking forward to the beer.
Yes, I was. So since we're lawnmowers here, all right, the I don't want to say the regulars are here, but I got a lot to talk about. I'm going to start off by one of the people leave comments, and I already know my viewers kind of a lot. Now I have a lot of people that I don't know that come in on the YouTube or TikTok or whatever, and some things don't have to be said, I think. An example is an oil pressure, how to rebuild your pump, specifically for AMC. And then a comment, and if William is not here, he can come in and see it later, is, you know that rebuilding a pump or whatever, exactly the words, ain't going to help a motor if the motor's bad. And that's kind of what I was thinking. That my viewers are not the Fisher Price, my first viewers. Pretty much anybody knows that. I mean, type in Warrior, you know, rebuilding an oil pump ain't going to help if the motor's bad. Well, you know, if there's a hole in the side of the block because you chunked a rod, buying an oil pump ain't going to help it. There's a lot of things that we know, kind of. It's kind of like, thanks for that, you know? And he writes, you know, something else, you know, bad advice, I don't know what it was, but it's really, yes. So I guess I have to, you know, and I say, our viewers, or our Fisher Price, my first viewers, you don't have to know anything about engines and know that statement is kind of like, yeah, you know? So I'm going to put it out there. If your engine is bad, and you spun rods, and it chunked the rod, or it's knocking, yes, watching that video on an AMC pump, but in general, putting your oil pump isn't going to help your engine. Sorry, I didn't put a disclaimer that, hey, don't do this. You know, it's, you know, going to get in some wax and waxing my car that's been in Florida and completely rusted. You know, the wax ain't going to help it. Do I have to say that? All right, I vented about that one. So, William, if you're not here and you missed that, and I invited you to come in so that we can talk a little bit more or whatever if you want to get into, you know, really talk about stuff. The video, I specifically say don't modify the oil pump spring, the check valve. I also did say because back in the day, old school, we would put a little shim in there to modify the pump. I'm talking about old school back in the day. But in general, never manipulate the spring. It's in the video, I say that. If you watch any of my videos or anything that I always talk about, what I always talk about, not a lot of oil pressure. I go with the rule of Smoke Unix says. 10 PSI for 1,000 RPMs. Means if your motor is idling at 900, 9 pounds oil pressure. You don't need 50, 40, 60 pounds of oil pressure at idle. I say this so many times. It's on all my videos. It's in everything. I believe I say it on that video as well. And one of the things, too much oil pressure is going to hurt. And then he mentions about cutting 2 rings off the spring. I can just pretty much tell you all the time, like I said, general rule of thumb, never manipulate the spring. If you don't know what you're doing, never manipulate the spring. Never. And we're back in the day. Sometimes, we have a big block Chevy that has more clearance and we're dirt track racing. We would add a little washer behind the spring. These are things that old school guys would do a little bit, but never cut a spring. When you change the spring, one thing you never want to do, you never want to pull the spring, think you're going to get more spring pressure. No, you just made it longer. It has a spring rate. So once you start to cut the spring, you change the spring rate and you're really affecting a lot of different things that, if you're beyond the average guy, then go ahead. But in my video, I specifically say never manipulate the spring. You don't want to do that. So all that being said, even Shop Mom has said it's what she's saying. It's all right. I don't want to just get into griping about that. It's kind of just, there's things that shouldn't have to be said. And I find it amazing. When I read that, I was like, I even showed Shop Mom. Duh. I mean, golly. Anyway. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody? Did I offend too many people already?
No, you haven't. Well, if you have offended people, that's not unusual. This is the day and age that we live in. One made a comment that a pint of beer, a bottle of water, and a bottle of beer, are you trying to chase a UTI out? And I'm guessing one has not been in here long enough to hear me preach, hydrate, 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 hydrate.
Yes.
For every alcoholic beverage you need to have an equal amount of water.
Keep hydrated. This is Texas. We got to stay hydrated. Texas will be cold one day. The afternoon will be warm. I put on 3 shirts in the morning, and by noon I'm down to 2 shirts. By the afternoon I'm down shirtless. So this is Texas. You don't like the weather, just don't go nowhere. Yesterday was the most beautifulest day. This morning it was cold. I heard we're going to have to be moving plants back in for a night. It's sunny right now. The Texas weather is something else. Tito's is great. I don't know who's mentioning Tito's, but we haven't had vodka in quite a while. This probably was on the show a year ago when we had anything with vodka in it.
That time you and Faye had a bottle of vodka, remember that? Y'all drank almost an entire bottle of vodka, and
that was the last time we had it, dude.
No. You did have drinks after that also.
Okay.
I think for a Halloween one that we did. But yeah, that was an eye-opening experience.
And y'all know this, and so unless no one's asking questions, I can just talk away.
Oh wow, Bob Miller has a question for you.
Okay, let's go to the questions so I don't have to talk about drinking.
Yes, let's not talk about drinking.
Let's not talk about
How long should my synthetic oil last? I only put on 2,000 miles a year.
At 2,000 miles a year,
you still have to change it on a yearly basis, cause
yes. Is it Amazon? If it's a mobile one, you should change it every week. Just get there I said it, and I'm gonna get I'm not sponsored, so I can speak freely, and I'm not gonna say anything that's just not true. So if I get more questions about why am I talking about that, but that's snake oil. So you want real oil. If you're using a real synthetic oil. Another thing that probably people going to be offended by about this 3,000 mile oil change and stuff. If you go into a synthetic oil and the oil doesn't break down anymore, you've gotten rid of the petroleum oil, which breaks down. Okay, this is synthetic is the way to go. Petroleum oil is crude, rude. It comes out of the hole in the ground. It was perfectly fine when we had Model A's, Model T's. We actually had leather for bearings. I mean, there's a different world back then. So as engines have progressed, tighter clearances, more loads, more frictions, we need a better oil. So now we have a synthetic oil that's made in a lab, and it's made to handle extreme heat. For a turbocharged motor, you better not put anything but synthetic in it, a real synthetic. So there's the oil. Rotelli, you have real oil. Rotelli is real oil. There's Valvoline is real oil. Driven is real oil. There's a lot of real oils out there, which there's a lot of inferior oils which make oils look bad, but it's not that. So I can tell you, we were at the NPW show last Friday, and we were talking, and my mom and dad were there, and they were telling the guys my beliefs, because now all of a sudden people are coming around with these different ideas. And he's like, Danny's been doing this forever. My Blazer, the last 100,000 miles, I never pulled the drain. Never drained the oil. 100,000 miles. Relax. I just become an Amsoil dealer. This is a long time ago. I put Amsoil real oil, real synthetic oil, and then I put an Amsoil high micron filter on the firewall, and then I used a good quality filter. Back in the day, it was a Baldwin filter. You want a high micron filter. So what you want is, Amsoil has an extended life filter. There's more than one. You want to filter your oil. Once you go with synthetic, it's no longer breaking down. So we gotten rid of the breakdown part of all of the stuff that's in the oil that breaks down. So an oil can be clean. You may not have any problems with the oil, but the oil itself broke down. It's no longer lubricating. What it needs to do, it needs to be a barrier between two pieces of metal. So it's no longer has that barrier ability. It may look like oil, but it's broke down. It's no longer has that ability. Okay, so you go to a synthetic oil, we no longer now have oil breaking down prematurely. They can take a lot more heat. All we have to worry about now is the next thing that takes oil out, contamination. So if you have a good engine, a late model engine, something that's running good, that has no problems, what do I like to do on Shop Mom's car? It's a high-end Acura, big. When it comes time to an oil change, I have Amsoil in it, extended life Amsoil. I pull the filter out. I fill that up with some Amsoil, screw that filter in, check my oil, and I top it off. And I think we're at how many miles and what? I've done one oil change in your car?
Yeah.
How many miles are on your car?
Right now, 104,000.
104,000 miles of one oil change. Hey, I don't, you don't have to do this, and I'm not saying go to that extreme. I just already proven this. I know it works. It's a high dollar Acura. I wouldn't be doing this to a $60,000 car. It's just, that's the facts. You can't unlearn something. So if you learn why you do an oil change, oil breaks down and it gets contaminated. Okay, so if I got rid of the oil breaking down by going synthetic, the next thing is the contaminated. Put a nice quality oil filter, change it regularly to keep the contamination out. Now, if you get contamination like you got a blown head gasket and you got water in it, of course, you contaminate it with that. If you have grit, dirt, anything that's contaminated, fuel, your injector, your fuel regulator, and you dump too much fuel and you had fuel wash, change the oil out. It's contaminated. You got a lot of gas in it. So unless something like that, but you have an average late model car, dang it. What I tell our customers, a lot of our customers have more money than sense. What do you say, CNT, cents? They got a lot of money. So I tell them, okay, if you don't drive your car that often, do it once a year. There you go. There's my oil change thing, and then people are probably going to want to know.
Okay, well, there was also another question regarding, can you talk a little bit about oil pan for small block Chevy for road race application in Corvette? And what, that's auto auction rehabs, and he's looking for a recommendation on an oil pan.
I like the one that I took a picture of earlier, our compressed engine. I'm just doing the freshening up, put a Moroso pan on it, and when you go look at a real pan, there's Kevco makes a nice, great pan. There's more than one, but the way you'll know, go online to the Moroso site. I like to get catalogs. That's why I go to shows to bring back catalogs. Look up how many pans they make for a small block Chevy. Look up all the other engines, but I'm going to just pick that one. Oh my God. It's not cost effective to make all these different variations of a pan, but it's important. There you go. You look up some companies, they make a nice pan. They got two options. All they're going to tell you is how many quarts you have in it. It's the same pan, just a little bit deeper. So all the options are just a 5-quart, a 6-quart, a 7-quart. That's it. Not Moroso. And not the only ones. Like I said, but go there. It's a good place to get your juices flowing. Start looking at all the pans. A road race pan is different than a drag race pan. A turning round pan, only doing one way as opposed to a road course pan, is a different pan. A lot of times on a badass street car, I'll use a road race pan. Why? Because we're doing left turns, we're doing right turns. I like the flappers in them. What's going to make the difference of a pan? First, you got to determine how much oil do you need. Okay, how much oil do you need in the pan? And a lot and more is not always better. Make sure you have enough to what you're doing. So that's important. Also, where the oil is going to be. A drag car, it accelerates and all the oil goes to the back really very quick. So there's little flappers in there. You'll notice a pan, especially if it's a road race pan, will have front, rear. Some of them will have front and back and left and right. They have openings and they have a little trap door. When you accelerate, that trap door opens and oil can get back into the back where the pump is, and it picks up. When you hit the brakes, that flap closes. So it keeps the oil from sloshing back to the front of the pan. You know, a little bit might get around it, but that little trap door, you hit the brakes, it closes, keeps the pan right there, oil in the back of the pan. You turn, you know, one way to the left, that little flap opens, you know, closes on this side, opens here, and any oil that got into the side can get to the middle. You turn that way, the same way. So these little flaps determine where the oil is, you know, is where you want the oil. So you can actually pick. I like side kick-up pans, but it depends on the headers. I'd rather have a long tube header. I don't like the shorties, you know, as much. Sometimes you don't. Then we got to phone in and call her. No. So there you go. So the pans, go to Moroso. Go to Moroso, because at least you may not, you know, pick that Moroso. They're not going to be the cheapest pan, but you don't want a cheap pan. I think the pan on our big block Chevy is almost $1,000. You know, has billet ends, all TIG welded. It has flappers. It has scrapers. I even, in fact, I took a picture. I don't think I posted it. I have, if you look back at some of my older stuff on Instagram or Facebook, I have a scraper. And it's actually it's about this wide. You can make one out of a piece of sheet metal. And basically, I take a piece of cardboard and I lay it on the oil pan rail and basically turn the crank, take a marker and start kind of marking out the weights. Take a pair of scissors, cut that out, slide it in closer. Now the connecting rod comes around. I mark it, take a piece of cardboard and make a template. I got the template hanging up there. Like, if I could run over there, I'll show you the template. But as close as we can get to all the moving parts, that's going to go on the block before the oil pan gasket goes on and the pan goes on. That's called a scraper. On a drag car, I'll even put on the back, this Moroso pump. I highly recommend that get one of the Moroso pumps. It's a melting pump, and we could spend 4 or 5 hours blueprinting it, or you can buy the Moroso one that already has the pickup and it has a little windage in the back. So any oil that accelerating ain't gonna come up and get on your rear main seal and put a lot of load or oil on your rear main seal. It just keeps it from going up there. You want all the oil needs to be in the pan, not on the sides, not on the top. So I hope that helps. I don't know.
Joe Mama says this is a cool feed.
Well, thank you, Joe Mama, and I can call you that because that's your name. No offense. We talk anything automotive. Anybody, you're welcome to ask a question. I'll throw it out there. I'll give you an answer. You know, if I don't know, I'm gonna just go and tell you I don't know. But I know.
Now Kevin has a question.
Yes.
Can I send a set of new Dart Pro 1 heads down to you for a mild porting and do a quality valve job? No shops left here. Wherever here is. Sorry, Kevin, I should have remembered where you are. The sad part of that question is that we really don't do any porting here.
We do. Like someone said, we don't do any porting, any walk-in porting. Stuff gets in your eyes. Stuff gets. I'm real picky. If I'm doing a build, most definitely. But I do have a guy of mine, Ask Shop Mom can send you a link to Dylan. That's probably right up his alley, right up his speed. Like I said, I keep my porting just for one of our builds. I just like to be hands on. Now, you have Dart Pro 1s. We can walk you through what you can do. You could probably do just as good of a job, and you could do it there and save yourself a lot of money. When you have an aftermarket head, they're pretty much already, there, as opposed to taking a stock head and trying to enhance the airflow. You really got to work a lot on the roof. Depending on which head you want, the short turns are always the worst. Stay off the floor. Not only when you're drinking, stay off the floor. Think of air. Air does not like to do a turn. So if it does a turn, all of the work is done on the top. The bottom, if you port the port really big, we normally, a lot of times on the Ford, like the Ford 351 Cleveland Ford, we have to epoxy the floor. and we have to make the port smaller. So we have to get some velocity up. When when air does a turn, it doesn't like to do the turn on the bottom. So if you do too much work on the bottom, you create turbulence. Get Smokey's books or get his Power Seekers book. You're done. Get the Power Seekers book. How long ago it was written, it's still true today. So what Smokey would use, he would use a stream. If you want to get to understanding before you touch anything, he had a stream. And he started just flicking rocks through the stream while he would meditate. One day the rock went down and it hit the mud at the bottom. And then he noted that, wow, he could actually see, where it hit. So then he took a stick and he stuck a stick in the mud. And he could actually see water running around the stick. Okay? You can't see air. That's why they put smoke in a flow bench, or if you want to see how air is turning. He realized that water mimics air almost to a T. So his first flow bench for cars, he built a model of the Chevelle and he stuck it in the water. And by sticking it in the water with the string on the front, he noticed that the body just spun all around. So he reworked the body till he could stick it in the stream of water and it's stabilized. It didn't just spin all around, turn, and hit the bottom of the thing. So he used a stream of nice, clean, fresh running water as his flow bench. That's where he got a lot of his ideas, and he saw. Then, he had the best flow bench. Trish still has it. Like I tell her, one day it will be mine. One of the biggest flow benches ever. Flowed more air than, probably flowed much air in this room. All manufacturers, or a lot of the manufacturers, Pontiac was still sending engines over there after Smokey was dead to get flowed. So he would flow an engine. That's another thing, not a cylinder head. Okay, like Smokey would say, I don't see a cylinder head going around the track. Flowing a cylinder head is just, you get data from it, but unless you consider everything else. So what he would do, his flow bench sucked, right? Flow bench. The oil pan, big old fitting on the oil pan with a big hose. He would build the engine up, leave a cylinder off, and then he would put a cylinder head on, put the cam on and everything, intake and everything, and he would flow it the way it was built. Why? Even on a flow bench, you got to be careful with guys with flow benches. Oh, I'm doing, the 300, 400 CFMs. One of the things that first look at their lift. They're flowing stuff at 600 and 700 lift, which is great. I only have a 480 cam. So yeah, I bought me a set of King Daddy heads that flow 330 CFMs at 700 lift. I could give a batootie what's happening at 700 lift unless I'm running a motor at 700 lift. In fact, it's going to make you less horsepower. So we spent a lot of time on the flow bench, even with a 45 and a 30-degree angle. And I really like a 30-degree angle for low lift flow. The 30-degree angle gets out of its own way. The 45 is actually in the way at 10,000s, 20,000s, 50,000s of lift. The 45 is actually in the way. A 30-degree angle, as soon as I crack the valve open, it's already flowing air. So I like to start getting my flow numbers up right as I crack the valve open, and then I keep them going. I could care less what it does above 480 if I'm running a 480 lift cam. And if you go to that realm, you'll find out that it's a different world there. And a lot of times people hog out ports and get way too big, and you're not going to get any air in the cylinder with a humongous intake port. I don't care, big isn't better on there. What you have to do is consider the airstream, the velocity in the air in the port. Okay, so once you have a big port, it's because I got a big piston, and I'm going to have to put some compression up in there. I'm going to have 13 or 14 to 1 to pull hard on that port. So that everything is matched perfectly. Putting that head on to a motor that's not pulling hard, you have dead air. Dead air is going to flow less air than a stock cylinder head. What I like to tell everybody, I said it many, many times, is think of a river. We have the Guadalupe River here. Everybody got rivers, I would hope. Think of a river that's flowing 25,000 gallons per minute. The number does not matter at all, but it's flowing 25,000 gallons per minute. As the river chokes down, what happens? It's flying through the choke down part. Boy, it shoots you through that chute. Boom, it just shoots you out. As the river opens up and gets really wide, and you're on your inner tube with a cold beer, you fly through that chute, and all of a sudden you spin around the sides and you go so slow. You're still flowing 25,000 gallons per minute, but the port is so wide, the stream, the river is so wide, the port's so big. Yes, I'm flowing a lot, 25,000 gallons per minute, but I only moved 1 inch. Because it actually, as soon as you went through the chute, the water turns around like this on the bigger ends, and you end up going around, and you get stuck over here, and you get stuck over here just floating until you push yourself back into the stream. A smaller port will shoot you. You can't even get stuck there. It shoots you down, damn quarter of a mile down before you realize it. All right, that's what it does in a port. So forget the big port idea. You already have, like I said, you got a dart. That head's already flowing a lot of air. I don't know. You may be building a 400.
He said that it's a rough casting. He's in, and I should have remembered because he said he's in frozen Idaho at the beginning of the stream, and I didn't even. But anyway, he says it's just a rough casting.
The rough casting is better than ported. Here we go. We grew up with wrong, false information. And why? What does everybody want? Ported and polished heads. Ported and polished heads. No. Wrong information. You want that rough casting. In fact, I will go back into it, the roughest sand roll or a carbide and burr up the intake port. You want a rough intake port. The exhaust port, I'll polish it out till I can see my face, on the exhaust port. You don't want carbon sticking on it. It's going out. On the intake port, it's doing more. It's a conduit. What Smokey would call it, it's a conduit of getting something from point A to point B. What are you moving? If you're just moving air, polish the bejeevers out of it. Get the right angles, the right size, the right turns, and polish whatever. You're just moving air. But you're not moving air. You're moving air fuel. Okay? So, what happens is, Smokey would tell you this, Fuel's Alive, it's in his books, and I encourage you to go get his book because all of this I didn't just make up. So, what the rough port does, it actually helps atomize fuel. If it's real smooth, the fuel droplets will actually stick and roll right to the bottom. And it turns back. Fuel likes to revert back to its natural state within a few milliseconds. So you only have a few milliseconds to get it from the carburetor or the throttle body to the intake valve. That ain't long enough in a few milliseconds. So the rough ports will actually hold fuel and little droplets, and air is going through there will actually pick up those little droplets and actually help a little bit. It's not going to let the fuel just run down the side to a stream of liquid. It's going to try to help you keep it atomized a little bit longer. Also, it helps in the atomization of the fuel because it's rough. So don't polish your intake ports. In fact, a rough casting, leave it. Leave it. It's rough casting. Port match it. Do a port match. Do a port match. If you want to do anything, unshroud the valves. Unshroud the valves will pick up your numbers. If you have that cylinder head, doesn't it have a 205 intake? It's not a 202. I believe it's a 205. We actually flowed more. We actually, forget flowing numbers. We actually went faster around a circle track. I've told this story before, so if you heard it before, I'll make it quick. We actually went faster in a certain class, in a street stock car with a 194 head than a 202 head. It wasn't until about 5,500, 6,000 RPMs that the 194 was pretty much had it, and the 202 could take up a little higher in RPM. Well, guess what? It was a street stock car that was never at this RPM. It was here at this RPM, okay? What happens is the valve is too big, and think of a valve, and as it opens, fuel is going out all the way around. So you have a valve, fuel just going all the way around. If you have a wall on the side of your valve,
it's a 205, he said.
It's a 205, so you have that wall that's got about, half of it almost against the wall. This side is free. So when you start putting a bigger valve, you actually you hurt the airflow around the wall. Move that wall away from the valve. Move that wall all the way to the gasket. Take your gasket, drop your gasket down, scribe your line there, take your grinder out, and move that wall away. You can go all the way, Are you going to lower compression a little bit? Yes, you're going to lower compression a little bit. For the difference that you're making, you can probably go with a little bit thinner head gasket. But this is more important. Airflow is going to make you more, move that wall away. So what happens is when everybody wants to put a bigger valve in there, unless you had a need for it, unless I had a big cubic inch motor that was turning a lot of RPMs and I need airflow and I needed that, okay. But if not, you actually cost yourself some horsepower because I didn't need it, and yet that bigger valve has a wall right there which is not letting air flow around the whole valve. It's only letting air flow this way. So move that wall back. It's already 205. You already bought it. It's okay. I tell everybody, you work with what you got. Don't go with, oh, I made the wrong. You work with what you got. You know, is every combination perfect? No. You figure out what you already have. I like to start out with the first sheet of paper. That's the best way to go, but that's not, I don't live in La La Land. People come in already with an engine that somebody else already built, or they already bought a lot of parts. So, unless it's something that's really wrong in the combination, we live with what we have. This is the real world. Like I said, we don't live in La La Land. This isn't the perfect, world. So we live with what we got and we make it work. Sometimes we have to change the combination a bit to work with what we got. Even though this may not been the right cam, normally, but because this is wrong, we can play with the cam specs to enhance what we know is not necessarily perfect. But it doesn't mean you got to go change it. Unless you're building an NHRA super stock car that you're running for a class and this, 1/4 an ounce of power is going to make a difference. For the most part, you're not going to tell the difference of 5 horsepower. So try to get the right combination. All right.
That was a good answer.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Shop Mom.
That's all right. That's what I'm here for. And by the way, happy Aloha Friday from Jake in Hawaii.
Oh, happy aloha. I wish I had a reef thing.
It's a leg.
It's a lay. Hey.
Everybody wants a leg.
Everybody wants a lay, yeah. Joe Mama says it's been about 25 years since I rode down the Guadalupe. So you know the Guadalupe, and you know that's one of the nicest things. Up here, you go and you'll go hours just riding, and it's kick-ass. Everybody has inner tubes and beer and whatever. So anyway, all right.
If we don't have any more questions, I think we can wrap up early.
Early? A 30-minute live stream? No, there's got to be questions.
Actually, there was a question. I was always told start with RPM range and a cam to match, then build around that.
Build a combination, exactly. What
cam is the best bang for your buck.
Yes, and we just delivered it. They picked it up today, a 383 stroker, and it's unconventional in the sense that I asked the customer, what is it going in? What is it going in? What's your intent? What is this? So we talked about what the RPM range is going to be in high gear. A lot of times nowadays, almost everybody now is building stuff with an automatic overdrive transmission. So I want to know what the RPM is when it goes into overdrive. What is it cruise RPM? We live in the Texas Hill Country. You'll drive 40 miles to get a burger. I mean, you'll drive, so it's not unlikely. Here in the Texas Hill Country, we're in the middle of San Antonio and Austin. We have the Roundup. We got so to do a long cruise, that's common. If you're living in San Antonio, you're driving around the neighborhoods, you can have a 538 gear in the rear end and RPM it up. But we live in the Hill Country, 281, everybody goes 75, 80 miles an hour. So
some of us like for them to get out of our way so we can.
And those are the ones that are in Shop Mom's way. They're going 75, 80 miles an hour. So we want to find out what that RPM range is. And this particular 383, I did it to where we're going to be done by 5,000 RPMs. We're going to be done. Has AFR heads that we had custom CNC ported. I'm running the LS valve train. So I've been using an 8mm stem, like what an LS has. I'm all in for beehive springs or lightweight springs. You don't need a lot of spring pressure these days. You're giving up horsepower. Why would you do it? But I talked to the customer. If you want that big belt buckle so you can sit with your buddies and say, I got 700 horsepower, I got 600, tell me what you want, and I'll give you that. But understand that's not usable. Understand that to get that, you're going to need a 3500 stock converter. 3800, well, you also want to use an automatic overdrive transmission. When you go into high gear, it's going to drop down under 3500. So now we're going to be in the converter, and we're going to be burning up transmissions. We're going to be getting terrible gas mileage. It's just going to tear up all kinds of shit. Excuse me, all kinds of ships. Not necessary. Just because you want to tell your buddy that you're going to, So does that mean that this 33 that we just built won't go to $6,000, 65? He asked me, whoa, so I got to be, I said, no, if you get in water, you get crazy, you get as an older guy, if you get with your son, have a beer, you want to show off and do a burnout contest, We have a forged steel crank. We got some of the nicest connecting rods. We got some nice forged internals. It's clearance, it's balance, it's blueprinted. It will handle it. I don't like telling everybody rev it till you're done, because but you could. It ain't gonna go nowhere. I mean, the cam choice. I had the Bullet. I encourage everybody, stop buying the cookie cutter cams, and nobody wants to hear that. I know that, and there's a lot of great cam grinders. So don't, and a lot of times they know what they're doing, and you can pick out a cam, and right off the bat, most people, they ain't gonna care. But getting a custom ground Bullet cam is not actually more than getting anybody else's cam. And Mark Chacon at Bullet, what I tell everybody always, as much as you think you know about camshafts, the more you know, the less you know. I've talked to, one or two, three people in my life that they know their shit about camshafts. Mark Chacon would be one, huh?
Their ship about camshafts?
The ship's about camshafts. Yes, man, that ship is, you may be cam guru engineer, whatever. Well, then great. Then you don't need any help with that. What I do is I have a program on my laptop that I can put all the data in, and it's an engine dyno program. It's pretty damn close. It's a nice expensive one. I go old school and put it all together on a nice build. I'll take that and drop that in there and kind of play with a little bit with there, and I kind of go, okay. When you start getting into this realm, you need to know the size of the pipe, the length of the tubes of the runners, everything, the size of the tire, the rolling diameter of the wheel. I mean, you want to know everything. Then I call Mark up. I tell him what I think. We got a good rapport now. Everybody says, oh, that grumpy old man, you got to get past it. He doesn't have patience for tire kickers or whatever. But he answered the question when he actually when we started giving him, well, I don't know about this. He'll tell you, but you go acting like you know everything. He'll just tell you, what do you want me to grind it to? I'll grind you whatever cam you want. But anyway, we're past that. We're in a great. I'll tell him this is what I'm thinking. Most of the time, damn, that's a cam I would have gone. That's pretty damn close. Sometimes, you know what? Why don't we back off here a little bit, or we discuss it a little bit further. He's helped me out on a Pacific race engine that I've never raced this specific track. Okay, and I'm building. I like torque in a circle track car. This is he says, have you ever run that track? I said, no, it's in Florida. I've never run that track. Our customer wants to go. He goes, I agree with you. Now I know where you're coming from, Dan. I agree with you. I like to pull spring pressure. I pull spring pressure. I don't give it anything extra that we don't need. But I make sure I give it what it needs to not have any issues at all. But extra, like back in the day, we'd put a shitload of spring pressure because that's what we knew. We don't want a cam float. We don't want a valve float. I go minimum spring pressure. Enough to what gets the job done, an extra 10 or 15 pounds, including the 10 pounds that it's always going to lose to begin with. It's going there. I'm a little different on spring pressures. I like a beehive spring. So anyway, he says, that particular track with this cam that you've picked out, love the cam, man, this thing's going to be a beast. We talked about the header length. This is a road race car or a circle track car, long tube header. We talked the length, we talked everything. He said, here's the problem. Your guy's going to be up in front 5 laps. And that's the last time you'll see him. And he ain't going to win the race, and he ain't going to be around, and that's it. And I'm like, what's the deal? That specific track is very aggressive. The asphalt is aggressive. All the torque you want to do, he'll have no tires left after about 5 laps. On that particular track, we want to kill torque. If anything, build your horsepower up top and long straightaway is when you do your passing. I like to make a lot of torque so it comes out of the hole and whoops somebody's ass right out of the hole. It's a different world, but on this particular track,
language, remember.
Yep. So this particular track, we don't want to do that. Mark Chacon knows his stuff, and he helped me out on that one. And so that's the thing about camshafts. It's really important. But pick the RPM exactly. I like to pick the RPM that I'm going to be running in. This particular truck, it's never going to see $6,000. So about 5, it's going to be done. I picked the cam that started making torque at idle. At 900 RPMs to 1,000 RPMs, it's in its torque band. It's coming in hard, and it's down low. It is down low. We don't need a big stall converter. It's a Chevy pickup. It's a C10, 1970 truck. It's going to be a fun truck. It's not a drag truck. I'll never see the drag strip, but it's a nice truck. It's going to be bag lowered. So I want to give this guy a torque monster. Make this a fun ride. So there we go.
Okay, so
Yes.
Kevin B has a question. He has an 86 350 that's
Tampa Bay,
30
Florida.
over. 30 over stock heads. I'm looking for a roller cam conversion. What would you suggest?
Okay, go back. It's a 30 over small blocks. Here it is. I see it now.
Yes.
I was 68. Okay, 350, 30 over stock heads. I'm looking for, yes. 87. Okay, do the you're going to get a retrofit kit. You can't put the bolt downs, and you don't want to change the block. 86. You're right there. Are you sure your block's not drilled for roller? A lot of them didn't come roller. 85 is when they started. In fact, the 85 to 86 model is some of the best year models for that block, because right when they first started to do the machining for the roller cam, they didn't put a roller cam in, and it still had a fuel pump hole. That's my favorite block, the 85, 86 block, because a lot of the old school guys want to put a fuel pump. They don't want fuel injection. They want to put a fuel pump on. They like old school. But nowadays you want to go roller. That is the year block. After 86, 87, they stopped drilling it for a fuel pump. They were all roller, but they didn't even have the fuel pump hole. But right in there for about a year or two, they started putting a block off plate. So if your block has a block off plate, it's drilled for a fuel pump. That is an awesome block. So 86, I think it is drilled. If it is drilled for roller, all you got to do is go to any salvage yard or go Jag Summit, anywhere, eBay, the best place, you know me, eBay, and just get you the stock Chevy parts. You don't have to spend anything on getting anything aftermarket. It's going to be a tray with some hold downs, the little dog bones that go down and hold all the lifters, and then a metal tray goes down. I have a video on how to do that tray drilling upgrade on a Ford, and all that Comp did is they took a Ford 302 roller cam motor and took all that stock Ford stuff, put it in a box, Comp, and gave an instruction sheet on how to drill your block and use that on theirs. So, but the stock Chevy stuff works perfect. Works perfect. If not, go to Comp or go to Crane, go to Iski, and you're going to need a retrofit kit. The retrofit lifters are going to be a little bit more. You're going to pay money. It's the ones that have the tie bar. There's going to be a little bar that connects the two lifters together, and that's because your block hasn't been machined for roller. But check and see if the top of the lifters have a machined flat. They're not casted. They're actually machined. You can tell they got a mill, and they milled all of the tops of the lifters.
I like the sound effect.
And then the center pads are machine flat and have a drill hole. That's what holds down the bolt down. Like I said, 80, 85, 86, the early ones, the very early, I think it's 84, the humps are all there, but they didn't machine anything. The block was already started to be casted for. And then 85, they started to drill them, but they didn't put a roller cam in yet. And then about even 86, now they started using all the stuff. So you're right in there, you're 86. I think you're going to be awesome. I think you're going to be, let us know. Like I said, you will know because the tops of the lifters are machine flat. They're not casted round. After they were casted, they came in with the mill and they machined the top of the lifter bosses. That's what holds your little flat plates. And that's how you're going to know if was machined. I bet you it was machined. It may not be roller, but it was machined.
Excellent. Excellent.
All right.
By the way, I said I like your sound effects, and Venom says it's Beaker from Sesame Street.
I like
recognized your sound effects.
Oh, I like Beaker. I like. We're old school. We're all the OGs. We remember.
Bob says, or the Roadrunner.
Yeah. And then the Muppets. Remember the Muppets? Remember the two old men up in the.
Yes. Yes. We know those grumpy old men, don't we?
Yes. All right. Okay. If you want to talk about lifters and oil and all that, that kind of goes with the roller stuff, but I don't know. Anybody else have any questions? We still got a little time left.
Yeah, Venom says the Opera House seats. Yep.
Yes.
That's the one.
Yes.
That's the one. Yeah, we do have a little time, but there don't seem to be a lot of questions today. Maybe people have Super
Bob's
Bowl
here.
on their mind. Yes, Bob's here, and so is Felicia. So we have
I saw Felicia.
2 of our 4 kids.
She was the first.
Yes, she was. Yes, she was. But
And Andy was the first. He's the first one in the room. So anyway,
Okay,
all right.
as I said, maybe people want to talk about the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl.
Anybody betting on the game?
And anybody watch last year's Super Bowl? I'm going to be looking at the Super Bowl this year. I don't have any high expectations, but eBay Motors did extend our contract a year. So last year, if you watched the Super Bowl, you saw me sliding across the chair. If you watched
sliding across the floor.
sliding across the floor on a chair, or the Daytona 500, you saw me sliding. A lot of people go, "Oh, that was you." But yes, that was me. So Super Bowl. We like to do food.
That's
We like
good,
to do.
Louis, that's good. Soup or bowl. Yep.
Do you find out what diamond like means? Yeah, it's diamond like. Now everybody's going to it. We've been seeing a lot of stuff the last week or two. I've been watching a lot of stuff, and everybody's now going to that diamond like finish. The Volvo for Too White and Nerdy, he's not in, right?
No, he's not, because if he was, we would have thanked him for the lovely gift
Wine
behind you.
that yes. I'll go ahead and thank him now. You're not in the room, but because it's going home tonight. We left it here so that I could personally thank you for this great bottle of wine. This is a second Volvo head that we've done for him. It's pretty nice when your customer brings you wine, and
He brought me the wine, he brought you some beer.
so he brought me beer, the Miller Lite, and he brought Shop Mom the wine, but the wine's going home. I just didn't want to take it home until we thanked him. Thank you. You're not in the room, but maybe you'll see this later.
He'll watch it later.
The Volvo lifters have a diamond-like coating. So I don't know what that means. Like I said, diamond-like coating. This could be diamond-like, whatever. It's a real hard coating. I'll find out. It was weird because we were at SEMA when Smitty, I said, tell us what's the newest thing that, and he mentioned these lifters that didn't need a cam brake in. And it's because now, since November, Smitty has passed. So Smitty, thanks for bringing that out. I need to go ahead and drop that video. I'm kind of like leery of dropping that video or not, but anyway. So I don't know exactly.
He has words of wisdom yet to impart. There's a reason to drop the video.
Okay.
By the way, we've got a couple of other questions.
Yep.
Auto auction rehabs. Do you need special roller lifters for a 74 small block Chevy?
For a 74, you're going to need a retrofit,
Right.
which all that means is the retrofit. It has a tie bar. There's a little bar that connects the two together to keep it from spinning. Going to be a little more expensive. The price has come down, but when we first started doing them, it was actually a race lifter, and we spent $1,000 on a set of lifts and a cam. The price has come down quite a bit, but it has a tie bar because you cannot use the GM bolt downs. That's why I like the 85 block, because it's made for roller and it has a fuel pump hole. So a lot of times you can get that block and put it into a vintage car and go full roller at a very low price.
There's also a question on balancing cranks. What is the best way to do it? And Bob says you should do a stream in the balance room.
Yes, we had done one or two, but Shop Mom can't be there to answer questions from there to there. We could set something up, and actually people really liked it for the balance room. It was more of a questions in the balance room. That's what I think it was one of the early ones.
You really could do a stream without me participating.
Well, you keep the room and you keep me straight. Balancing is very important, and most people don't realize that you can do 80% of it, of the hard work yourself at home, without even spending a lot of money. And then you could take your crankshaft over to a shop and have it spun. A lot of people also don't know that on opposed cylinder engines, you don't even have to spin it up. Because the weight is the same on the opposite end. Unless you're getting some exotic titanium rods or something, just getting everything balanced. The last Honda had a shop. Actually, we went to National Parks Warehouse convention last Friday, and there's a lot of
Friday before,
and there's a lot of shops, so we get to talk with a lot of people that we meet and we see a lot. And it's like you feel guilty when you balance a Honda. You feel guilty when you balance a Honda because there are opposed cylinders, and it's like, golly, you still got to go through all the legwork. You got to put the bob weights on. You got to put it on the machine, but they're just so perfect. It's like you're not really fixing much. But you can get you a little inexpensive scale off of eBay. You can make a rod hanger. I think I just saw a YouTube video on a guy who made a rod hanger very inexpensive out of plywood and a piece of a screw and a nail. You want to get the connecting rod and you want to divide it up from the small end to the big end. So you don't want to weigh the whole rod. You do want to weigh the whole rod, but you have to divide it there. So, one quick way to do would be to weigh the whole rod and then get the weight of one end. Whatever's left is the other end. The problem with that is make sure you verify before just assuming. Because how are you going to find what is the center? Right? You got to find the center. Got to find the center. So, what I like to do is weigh the light end, weigh the heavy end, add the two together and weigh the complete rod. If those two numbers don't add up to this, adjust your scale. Because when I start moving my pivot point, I add more weight to this side, right? Or more weight to that side. If those two numbers don't add up to the complete rod, your setup is wrong. You got your setup wrong. The rod's too. If also, when it goes on a scale, if I raise this up higher, I now put more weight on the scale, even though the rod didn't get any heavier, right? But it got heavier. So finding out how high to get this part so that you're weighing just one side of the rod and then we're weighing just this side of the rod, well, I can play with this side. I'm real picky. Numbers don't lie. So I will play with it for an hour just to get exact. I know a lot of shops weigh one side, weigh the complete rod, whatever's the difference is the other end. Well, I found that can be quite a bit off. That can really be quite a bit off. So I will play with the height and the movement in and out, weighing both ends, writing down a sheet of paper. I already have my rod weighs 540. I weigh both ends. I keep moving stuff around until bingo. I put my rod on there, it weighs this. I flip the rod, it weighs this. I add those two, it weighs that. My jig is now set up. Now I can start doing my balancing. What you want to do is get the lightest big end and make all your big ends this light. Get the lightest light end and make all your light ends this light. Get your pistons, weigh all the pistons. Make them all the same as the lightest one. I take the piston pins. Nowadays, unless you got some new old stock, piston pins don't vary. They got that down to an art. They're very, occasionally, I'll still open every one and weigh every one. That's what I'm telling you. Nowadays, the old stuff, I can take them and there's a difference there. I'll use the different pin weights and my different piston weights and I'll juggle them around. And if I can juggle my pins and my pistons and get a lot of the balancing without ever touching a grinder, even better. Yes, that pin now goes with that piston. Once you press it on the rod, it's there, right? So how hard is it to juggle your pins around and get you closer before you start? Also, how much does aluminum weigh and how much does steel weigh? Aluminum weighs a lot less. If I had a gram of steel right here and I had a gram of aluminum right here, my gram of steel would be a lot smaller than my gram of aluminum. So if I got to take 2 grams off of a piston, I'm going to take it out of the inside of the piston pin. The inside of the piston pin, you can work the inside of the piston pin. It's hard to get in there, but I would rather take half a gram out of the inside of a piston pin. If it's not a floating pin, so there's no C-clips, if there's 2 C-clips on each side or spiral lock on the, you cannot do anything to the pin. If it's a pressed pin, I can shorten the pin a little bit. I'm talking about just a little bit. I'll take it to a machine the side of the pin a little bit, taking 5/1000s off the pin ain't gonna hurt anything. In fact, it ain't never gonna know, except for the weight. So I will do that. You can't do it to a floating with the C-clips. Don't want to get in there. Don't manipulate. Don't touch the sides of the pins if it's floating. Hey, Peter. Hey, there's my partner in crime on my eBay Motors commercial. Peter was gracious enough to provide his shop, and he was mopping the floor because I just could not say let's ride. I just couldn't get it because you ride a motorcycle, you don't ride my chair, you know. And they actually brought a chair in because I like to slide in and out of my videos. So anyway, hi Peter. Hello. I hope that they renewed your contract as well. I guess they had to. Who knows if we're going to be on the Super Bowl or not? But hey, it was a fun. It's a fun deal, and I got to meet some real good friends. Now I'm friends with Peter, and we're friends with Jay. We're friends with Kamal. It's just, it's all good.
Kamatni.
Kamatni. I don't, you know. Okay, so
Good Lord, Sam.
I can't pronounce anybody's name.
No. And Peter's supposed to be headed this way in May.
So Peter's coming in May. So we'll see you in May, Peter, when you get here. I think his son is in Texas already, and he's thinking of coming to Texas. So, all right.
Everybody wants to come to Texas, but it's time for us to wrap things up because we have been here for an hour.
We got 4 minutes for any last questions.
There haven't been a whole bunch of questions, although I love Venom's humor. You guys, you just make it for me because of the humorous crap. Thank you guys so much.
Hey, Peter, ask your Snap-on guy why you didn't get a pair of these.
Now, he said he could see you were fixing watches.
Yeah. These are real. These are actually real. These are some real dudes. It does say in the back for demo only. But these are metal. This is metal. This is a Mark, our compressed air engine guy has Snap-on trucks. So when we went over there and filmed some video for the compressed air engine commercial or advertisements, he walked out of the back and he said, "Here, I got this for you." So that's actually pretty cool because it's actually a real one. So you saw it. I had to show it off.
And before we wrap up, let's just point out that Kevin is letting Kevin B know that there's a date code on the back of the block. The letter is a month, number is the day, and the last single number is the year.
Excellent.
So you know what decade your block is in.
On the Bellhausen, what he's talking about is on the Bellhausen side. On the front, there is VINs, and you can get that and go type that in. They'll tell you if it's made in Flint, Michigan, is made in Ohio, wherever it's made. On the back of the block, generally more towards the driver's side, there will be date code, just like he's saying. And it starts off, I just saw yesterday, I was looking at one, and it's A69. It happens to be a DZ 1969 Camaro. A, January. B, February. We know how we can go. Don't ask me to get the alphabet going. So, but that's what it starts off with. A is January. This one happened to be January 6th, I believe. It was A69. A January 6th of 9. The only thing is on the date codes of GM, you got to use a little bit of common sense on the last digit. The 9, 69, 79, 89. A. Use common sense. We can tell the difference. A, if it's never been washed or anything, A is January, but A, it'll be orange. You know, remember in the 70s, they went to GM blue. Remember in the 70s, 80s, they went to black. So we can go by the color a lot of times if it's never been done before. Also, you can tell by the block with the drilling holes. If you've done them a lot, if you've never seen a small block Chevy, you're not going to go, well, I can tell already what year it is. So be careful on the last digit. They didn't put 69. They did 9, and you got to use some little bit of common sense. Is this a 59, 69, 79, 89? A, once again for January, this one has baffles in it. Back in 69, they had baffle holes inside the block. Once they started getting to 70, they didn't have that baffle. When you pull the intake off, there's a hole with the baffle there. So I already know it's not 79, and then 79 was the lightweight GM blue, thin casting crap. Sorry, clap, whatever you want to call it. So you do have to use a little bit of common sense on the last digit, but there's a date code right there in the back. With that, you don't even have to go to the front. Write those numbers down and get on the computer and figure out what you have. The front numbers will tell you what plant it was made for, if it was made for a truck, if it was made for, single carb, dual carb, it'll tell you a lot more. But the back will tell you the date code.
Okay, time to wrap it up, but let's shout out to Superman, who has wished all of us Feliz Dia de los Enamorados, which is Happy Valentine's.
That's Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you.
Although we say Solis, we don't say Feliz.
Yeah, yes, we started replacing Feliz with Solis.
So if it's your birthday, it's Solis cumpleaños. If it's Merry Christmas, it's
Solis Navidad.
Solis Navidad. Solis Año Nuevo. And Solis to all of you guys. It's good to be with you.
It was good to be here myself with you. I'm going to write piece and assembly grease really quick. And let's see how quick I can do this before Shop Mom.
Don't worry. Piece and assembly grease. See, if you type it enough, it actually comes up automatically.
I did, and it came up. So piece and assembly grease, everybody. We'll see you next Friday. Have some questions. Send Shop Mom a link, something to save all your questions. We'll see you next Friday.